Next, let's look at the main project pages inside a REDCap project. The project homepage is where you'll land when your project's in production. It has quick links to tasks that are very common in the back end of the project, such as exporting data, creating reports, and managing users. The other functionality page is where you'll come for larger project management tasks. On the other functionality page, you can copy or make a backup of the project, delete the project, or erase all data. Once you're in production mode, you'll have to verify with the REDCap manager that you actually want to completely delete your project or erase the data. You can also archive your project, which simply removes it from your list of active projects. You can also download an XML backup of the project. This includes all record, instruments, field, project attributes, all of your longitudinal project setup, as one single file that you can upload as a new REDCap project. This can be saved as a backup, or it can be used if you're transferring your project between institutions. It does not contain the project's logging history, but you can download that at any time via the logging tool. It also does not include survey setup information at this time. The project revision history comes into play once your project is in production mode. Once you're in production, every time you make a change to the data dictionary, a copy of the old data dictionary is archived. That means if you want to undo a change that you made, you can simply go to this archive, download the old data dictionary, and re-upload it into the project. Finally, there's a project setup page. The project setup page is your landing page while your project is in development. The first item on here is the main project settings. Here you can choose if you want this project to be longitudinal or to contain surveys. You can also change the project title and the project purpose. For example, if you have a test project that becomes your actual database. And you can create project notes. This is metadata about your project, someplace where you can explain things like, any question answered with a 999 means that the data was missing from the source data, or that this particular project is a copy project you're using to test upgrades. These notes are for documentation purposes only. 12 months. Your next option is to design your data collection instruments. You can do this with the online designer or with the data dictionary. We'll go into this in more detail in a future video. Optional modules and customizations are additional things you can use in your REDCap project to make it the most personalized, effective database for you. By default, auto-numbering is enabled in all projects. REDCap does have a randomization module if that is something you want to use. We recommend that if you plan on doing randomization in REDCap, you talk with your statistician first. You can enable Twilio here, which will allow you to send SMS text messages or use voice call services for your surveys. There are a handful of additional customizations as well. You can set a custom record label. By default, your record label is simply your record ID. However, if you want more information to show up as part of the record label, you can specify it here. By including the two field names, LName and FName in bracket, I'm piping the information in my last name and first name field. This means that my record labels display with the record ID and then the last and first name of the person. If you have multiple unique identifiers in your database, you can define a secondary ID field as well. You can also order records by another field. By default, records in REDCap are ordered by their record ID. You can change that here. The field comment log allows people to place comments next to the data they've entered. For example, they can specify that there is contradictory information here, or that the information was missing altogether. The data history widget allows you to see what the history of changes have been to a specific field in a specific record while you're in the data collection instrument. And the Today Now button is simply a little button that will appear next to any date field that allows people to quickly select Today or Now. Project bookmarks are exactly what they sound like. They are a list of bookmarks that will show up in the left-hand menu, linking to pages inside or outside of the project for easy reference. User rights and permissions are a little more complicated, so let's go explore them. User rights are where you add new users to the project or specify what rights the user may have. To add a new user, you can simply start typing their name in, and then you select it so that their username, not their real name, but their username, is visible in the field. Then you click Add with Custom Rights. The first thing you can do is choose how long this person is going to have access to your project. Then there are 3 very high-level privileges that we request you only give to people with full accounts and people who need it within your project. They need to have both qualifications. Project design and setup means that they can go in and make changes to the structure of your database. User rights means that they can come in and add or remove users from the project and change what users can access. We'll go over data access groups in a minute. Next, you can control what kind of data exports they can do. REDCap's default is that people can export de-identified information. They define de-identified as all free-form text fields, all date and time fields, and any fields that you've marked as an identifier. We recommend that you default to this remove all tagged identifier fields. This means that they'll be allowed to export any data except things that you have explicitly said are identifiers. You also have the option to let them export a full data set. Add and edit reports means simply that they can add or edit reports in the project, and stats and charts means that they can view the stats and charts associated with those reports or with your larger data set. There is also a list of other privileges in the project. This is simply the ability to use other applications in REDCap, such as looking at the calendar, importing data en masse, looking at the data log where you can see all the changes that have been made to the database, managing or using data quality rules, or using an API to import or export data. You can also choose whether or not people can use the REDCap mobile app here. The REDCap mobile app is completely separate from REDCap Online. It is an app that you can download onto a phone or tablet that allow you to collect data offline and then sync it to your REDCap project later. It is truly meant to only be used in situations where online data collection simply is not possible. You can specify whether users are allowed to lock or unlock records to prevent or allow additional data collection or changes to data within that record. Finally, you can manage people's access to individual forms in your project. On the form level, you can say if someone has no access, read only, or if they can view and edit the forms. This is viewing and editing the data, not the form structure. Something some people do is if access to identifiers needs to be very strictly controlled within a project, they'll put all the project identifiers together on one form, and then only the PI or one or two selected project admins will have access to that form at all. If you have a number of users who are all going to be doing the same role in the project, you can create a new role. You enter the role name and hit Create Roles, and then you specify exactly what rights people in that role have to the project. Then, when you add a new user to the project, you can simply click to assign them to that role. It's much quicker if you have 10 or 20 people who are all going to be doing the same tasks than assigning them all their rights individually would be. Data access groups are highly useful in multi-site projects. Someone who has been placed in a data access group will only be able to see the data that they themselves have entered or that other people within their group have entered. So you would create a group for every site in the project, put the people in their appropriate sites, and then your data is kept separated so people only have access to their relevant information. Once you've created your database, set up all your modules, and added the users that you want, you're ready to start testing your project. Practice entering data and creating reports on it. If you're using surveys or a longitudinal mode, make sure that you practice sending out a few test surveys. If you'll be working with a statistician, this is a good time to show them your database to see if there are any changes that will make life easier for them on the back end. Additionally, if you have people who are going to be working under you doing data entry, have them enter a few test records too. Make sure that the flow and the information makes sense to them. Once you've tested your project thoroughly and you're satisfied with how it's set up, you're ready to move your project to production. To do that, you simply click on this Move to Production button. You'll select whether you want to keep or delete any data that you've entered thus far. This will send an email to the REDCap administrators, and we'll take a quick look at your data dictionary, looking for key points such as, have all potential identifiers been flagged as identifiers, and have all fields that need to be validated been validated. We'll discuss any concerns we have with you, and then we'll send you a quick form to move to production. Once we have that form, we'll move your project to production, and you'll be able to begin real data entry. Two other features of note on the project setup page. In the left-hand applications menu, you'll see these minus signs. These allow you to collapse sections of this left-hand menu. It can be extremely useful if you're in a project that has a lot of reports or bookmarks, to simply be able to collapse them down so you can see the parts that you want. Finally, there's this Contact REDCap Administrator button. This is the single best way to ask for help within your project. When you click on it, it'll pull up an email that will address the question to us at the redcap@ucdenver.edu email address. It tells us what your username is, what your project is, and provides us with a link to it. This makes it much easier for us to find your project and go in and look to see if we can help solve your problem. Next, let's take a look at how you design the actual database in REDCap.